Yeah, this is super interesting. And, I want to pick up on this idea of there being a debate, because I think that that's something really important in the policymaking space, and in multilateral diplomacy in particular. So, I just came back from the NPT review conference, which is happening right now in New York. And as we know, there is this really kind of deep and I would say deepening divide between, some states who subscribe to the logic of deterrence and think that that's really important, and then other states who believe that deterrence is not reliable. It's eventually going to fail. And that when it does, it's going to have these really catastrophic consequences. And so, putting you a little bit on the spot here, but and recognizing that the war in Ukraine is, unfortunately, probably very far from over, I wonder what you have observed so far that would help you identify which side of that debate may or may not be correct.
Well, one thing we try to do in the piece is to point out that the structuring of this debate into sides is very artificial, because deterrence doesn't function without the realistic possibility that everything is going to go wrong. And the whole idea of the functioning of deterrence is that the risk simplifies calculations, that even the dumbest, clumsiest policymaker is going to realize that there is an inherent risk involved with nuclear weapons, and that is going to make it so easy to understand why one has to act with restraint. And that doesn't work if everyone is hyper rational and making great decisions all the time, because you could just talk yourself into nothing ever escalating. And in fact, there's a hilariously bad Chris Ford authored thing when he was at the State Department, where there was a discussion of whether, if the US were to launch low-yield nuclear weapons at Russia, the State Department's like, well, it wouldn't be rational for the Russians to retaliate, as though like this was some kind of like seminar. It's like, well, that's A, not how real people make decisions, but B, like essential to the functioning of deterrence is the fact that you are afraid that you can't control it. You are afraid that you don't know where the line is, and that therefore that induces caution. And so I think when you look at it like that, it ceases to be this issue of sides, and you just have to be clearer about the decision we're making, right? We have decided that we're no good at getting along, that settling our disputes with something other than lots and lots of violence is just not for us. We can't figure it out. It's too hard. It's the kind of thing hippies do. And so our solution is to base our security on the threat of cataclysmic disaster, right? So when you think of it that way, then I think it's very straightforward. We do get a deterrent benefit in the near term, right? Deterrence probably works. It definitely simplifies calculations. It definitely causes policymakers to act with more restraint, and that's good. But it will eventually fail. Like, it just will. And if there's no chance that it will ever fail, then it will stop working, because there's no chance it will fail. And so why would you be deterred? Because it would be irrational to do this. And so I think if we're honest about the bargain we're making, we don't know what to do other than this thing of deterrence. And we know that we can't do it forever, but we can't come up with a better idea in the next 10 or 50 or 100 years. And then, the only interesting question is, how long does your luck hold, right? And what do you use the time that you've been given yourself by creating the system of deterrence? How do you use that to transition to some other system? And so, I guess I'm quite comfortable saying deterrence works, that it has enormous upsides, that I understand why we do it. I understand why other countries do it, while at the same time stepping back and saying, like, oh, by the way, also, like, we can't do this forever. And like, we certainly can't do it for 1,000 years. And we probably shouldn't do it for 100.